Okay, good morning everyone. Sawadee Krap and selamat siang to our audiences in Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, and other audiences around the region too. Very good morning again. Thank you for joining our session this morning. The topic today is reinvent your strategy by leveraging your assets. We've got a good friend of mine, Nicholas Sagao, who is the Group GM for Media Prima Digital. But before I bring him on board, just a slight preamble with everyone. Especially those who are joining us for the first time. Yeah, this series is actually part of the COVID Insights Circle series. And for those that is not too familiar with what CiC is, CiC is actually a data-driven business support group. It is a community. And the whole spirit of CiC is about sharing, experiential, and collaborative. For this particular session, we made it slightly special. We're extending it to folks beyond the circle. Circle members definitely has their little perks. You know, what you see on screen right now. As a circle member, you will have access to Datel's ASEAN Consumer Intelligence platform. So that you can kind of look at the different consumer data that we have collected. We share also reports. We're doing a COVID-19 consumer study. As part of this series, we have bi-weekly webinars. And CiC Circle members are also allowed to actually be part of a research collaboration in terms of understanding consumer insights a lot better. And so these are essentially the perks. If you are not a member yet of the circle, we encourage you to join. I'll give you the URL slightly after this. But also for the benefit of everyone, as we're doing all these things, and before we kickstart the conversation with Nick this morning, I mentioned just now, Datel's efforts with regards to understanding consumer behaviors comes from our core of a platform of Voyager, which is our consumer intelligence platform. But what we've kind of put together alongside with that is a pre-COVID-19 consumer state of mind study, and also a specific study looking at the behavioral changes of consumers throughout this whole COVID period and whatever they were going through, with a single purpose that if we understand the consumer landscape a lot better, companies are able to then do different kind of strategies or address the markets better, especially as we're leading towards a recovery phase of things. Before we bring Nick on board, I would also like to extend sincere thanks to our CiC corporate partners, namely Densu from Indonesia, Britcham Indonesia, Magic, Amdec, Malaysian Retail Chain Association, Marketing Oops out of Thailand, and of course Media Prima Digital, and Mix Marketing and Communications out of Indonesia. So that's pretty much the partners that we brought on board, and we've got on screen here right now Nick. Morning, Nick.
Hi everyone. Hi everyone. Hope everyone is doing fine.
How are you doing this morning?
It's raining here in PJ, Selangor, Petaling Jaya. So, but yeah, it's just nice to be back in the office after a long time. I'm excited to talk to you guys about what we're doing in our space.
Nice, 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 nice. Again, thank you very much for the support that you and your team from Media Prima Digital is also giving us as a CIC corporate partner. Now, to get the ball rolling a little bit and to also kind of frame context with everyone that is listening to us this morning, right? Um, Now, everyone is well aware that with the whole COVID-19, all of us are impacted in one way or another. Naturally, some more than others. Of course, one of the key running themes in the conversations with people is that the need for us to be agile. Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the things that kind of brought us to this particular topic was one of the conversations that we were having. I was having casually with Nick,
Yeah.
and how he was ultra super busy, just like most of us, trying to figure out what else that needs to be done.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much the inspiration of today. Yeah. And trying to look at, as Nick was telling me the story, I thought, hey, this story would be really awesome if we were able to share with a larger set of audience. Granted, Media Prima Digital is pretty much in a digital content space, but I think the lessons learned on some of the experiences that Nick and his team has gone through could be applicable to anyone else out there. Yeah. And hence, we kind of, brainstorm a little bit and kind of zoom down to like, how can we look at leveraging existing assets? And what was interesting is I was sharing with people about our session this morning, right? I took for granted on the term assets. Because I had some people asking me, so Ashran, what kind of asset must I have so that I can join the webinar? So I'm like saying, okay. When I say assets here, right, it's actually reflecting what is it that you have within the organization itself. Um, and assets can mean a whole variety of things, and we'll discover that as we discuss in this particular webinar. But I think a key thing to look at here essentially is that if anything that we can learn from this whole pandemic exercise is that collaboration is key, right? How do you relate back to either your clients or your vendors or whoever it is, and kind of work together to be able to achieve each other's goal essentially, right? And so let's get the ball rolling a little bit. But because we're also opening this up to the community that we have within CIC that is beyond Malaysia, perhaps Nick, you could share a little bit about Media Prima Digital so that everyone can have that as a background landscape, and they can relate better to as you are sharing your
Sure.
experiences. And then we're going to look
Right.
at extending that in terms of how that can be relatable to everyone else. Over to you, Nick.
Yeah, right. Thanks, Ashran. If you guys are not familiar, Media Prima in Malaysia we are a multi-platform media company. Across the board, we have digital asset, not just digital asset, but also we own a lot of media platform. We have 4 TV station, 4 radio station. We have the largest outdoor out of home media in Malaysia, which is through Big Tree. We have we have the traditional bit, which is the newspaper. We have 3 newspaper. Right now we're still operating them. And of course, I'm come from the digital team in Media Prima, where we manage a lot of asset across the board, combined reach of about 15.5 million audience in Malaysia. That's a Comscore number. So it's audited, so I'm not I'm not I'm not bluffing you the numbers. Yeah, fluff it up there. So just 15.5. We were before the COVID, even before the MCO, we were hovering about 13 million to 14 on a good month. But we're consistently doing about 15.5 million now. Just to put that in perspective, in Malaysia, we're the number 3, just behind Facebook and YouTube, most visited digital platform overall as a group. And on mobile, I'm happy to say that we are like the number one. Just just a couple of few hundred thousand unique visitor behind us, Facebook and Google. But of course, we are the ecosystem like what Ashran rightly mentioned just now. We are a very close partner with Google and Facebook, even though we are competing for audience. But we do leverage on each other quite a bit in certain things that we do. So I hope that gives us a bit of perspective of how Media Prima Digital and who we are. Our digital asset, ranging from news content. We have the largest, most visited group of news content through Berita Harian, NST, Harian Metro. These are like your usual go-to news portal in Malaysia, and also we have the a bit more younger audience, lifestyle-ish portal like CiC, Bulan, and the list goes on. At the moment, we have about 25 digital assets that we run and operate in Malaysia over the course of last few years. Thank you.
Nice, thanks. That gives hopefully that gives a good actually broad stroke macro picture of what Media Prima does, and specifically what Media Prima Digital does. So I want to kind of kickstart this with the context of that. Everyone, right? Every single webinar that I attend to or that I moderate, and people's conversations out there, and even governments, they're talking about that. With this whole COVID-19, everyone talks about going digital, right?
Right.
And one would think, to some extent, that somebody that's already in its heart and nerve is digital, and because everyone is new, or the impact with regards to digital revenue, so to speak, would be great at this time, right?
Right.
But you were also alluding that just like any other business out there, you are also facing challenges within the organization and needing to deal with them. So what is your perspective with regards to this? Everyone says going digital, but as large as a company like Media Prima Digital, you are still impacted.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because we over the past 3 months we've seen like traffic to our digital platform like you've never seen before. In fact, I prepared like a short slide to just give a bit of perspective.
Great.
Yeah,
let's put it up.
Can you share it? Can you see it? Okay. So this is, I just compile a little bit of like what we share with our clients and partners as we navigate through the time. So just give it a bit of perspective. Currently, before even the COVID time, our YouTube was doing well, but when the COVID time, MCO time came along, we've seen like super growth on our YouTube channels. We have a unique partnership with YouTube where a lot of our content are actually on YouTube to be watched for free, and we monetize it through edX. Just a bit of perspective of how that's being monetized. So if you see, our traffics are, they're really climbing up during the MCO time, and then it dipped down a bit, and then it keeps on climbing on and maintaining at that pillar. And in terms of what content works, right? If you look at the blue line and also the purple one, these are basically our YouTube news channel. Bulletin TV3 is obviously the largest, it's a digital version of what we have for on TV, and Bulletin Utama is like the most watched news prime time in Malaysia, but that is converted into digital. So you see the traffic during the post MCO 1, MCO 2. This is basically to say that even though post the MCO in Malaysia, the one and number 2, we're still trending quite well up there. In terms of like people searching for content, searching for our brands on Google's, our brands are way above the rest in that perspective. And then this is quite an interesting site. We have an OTT called tonton.com.my. This slide was released by the Malaysian Digital Association during the MCO time. The growth of the audience watching our content is like over 200%. People are watching the news channel,
So that's awesome,
which,
right? I mean,
yeah, which is awesome, right? It's 200%. Like, where I'm gonna find 200% during normal time, right? Probably have to invest in like a few hundred thousand worth of content. So it's interesting around there. As a group, on Comscore also we're trending the numbers up on the side, and as well as on the respective brand. Like I said just now with Berita Hara and Hara Metro, Obulan and Says, we are doing pretty well up there versus the rest of the brand. So it gives you a bit of perspective of like how large is the growth that we had, right? But the
right.
problem with that we saw, because we depend so much on edX, right? We realized actually, during the end of March, we saw a super dip in our revenue. Be it non-direct. When I say non-direct, means it's directly from the client that book campaign with us, or even non-direct through any programmatic deal that we do. So this is obviously when that came along, all of us were like, the leadership was like, oh goodness, what's gonna happen now?
I mean,
And then
on one
obviously the
hand,
first
we
step,
think the traction-wise
yeah,
is super awesome, and you can't even think, what else could have done
yeah,
better without the circumstances.
correct. Of course, to get these numbers, it didn't just come in a way it is. The news team, my colleague in the news operation, and my colleague who are really operating on the digital front, I think we really worked really hard over the 2 weeks. People, because the demand for content and verification was really there. And I think we worked so hard. I can't remember like how much we pushed together during those time, and then especially work from home, right? I was quite amazing to see. But then going back to the revenue perspective, we really saw a dip into that. And the first thing we did was really to figure out and finding out why was this happening, right? And we realized there's a few things. One was the ecosystem itself was happening. A lot of our clients and agencies were not sure how is this going to be ending and what's going to be the end game to this MCO or COVID, right? They were not
Right,
sure how to manipulate. So a lot of brands were not sure with what to do next, right? So everyone was sort of wait and see. I think we spoke about this. Everyone was just sitting and wait and see what's going to happen. I know in Malaysia we had a period of MCO 1, 2, and 3 every 2 weeks, right? It's a 2 weeks period for all the client agencies. Hey, we wait first. We'll wait. Okay, 2
let's
weeks
wait
later,
2 more
say, oh
weeks.
no, we'll wait. It's 2 more weeks. That was one. Everyone was wait and see because of the ecosystem. And the other one was it's a pretty big one, was that a lot of the campaign asset, a lot of the the creative that was done before the MCO or COVID time were really out there. They really, like, for example, their campaign to get people on ground, for example, right? They spent so much money on that, but now when the
Right,
COVID
right.
came around, there's no way for them to change the creative or to reshoot it again, and you couldn't go out, right? That was another big problem. Even though the client wanted to spend, they don't have creative, right? So it's question mark is like, then how are we going to do that, right?
Right.
So we start to ask around. These are the main challenge that the client had, and obviously, I mean the given one is that everyone is the first thing they reduce during this challenging time is obviously advertising and marketing, because it's quite a variable thing, right? So everyone
Right,
sort of
right.
like don't spend on marketing now. So the first two MCO has really struggled for us, but we kept ourselves busy and just creating a lot more content and creating a lot of engagement on the platform.
Cool. And I think a lot of other businesses out there could relate. And then, like I said earlier on, right? Everyone faces challenges differently. Some is able to move a lot faster, some may not. And I think the ability to be able to identify and react quickly enough, like most of the conversations that's happening right now, is naturally very key. And I think you kind of
Right,
alluded
right,
to that.
right.
So taking on what you just highlighted just now, Nick, right? You've got all this content platforms, so to speak, You've got a whole bunch of clients out there, right? And I guess in the context of our session this morning, which is about leveraging your assets, it's fair to say that in at least Media Prima lens, and then this is coming from my end, that your digital platforms are your asset, naturally, number one. The ad spaces that you have are your assets, and naturally the talent pool that you have internally
Yep.
within Media Prima itself are the assets. And I was just wondering, for the benefit of the audiences that we have this morning, if you could, just as much as you can, elaborate a little bit so that
Yeah.
we can understand from your lens, and then perhaps we continue that conversation to contextualize it to other types of business out there.
Right. Right. So one of the very simple example that I could share is that relating to campaign that we do.
Right.
I my team we run a very large esports activation in Malaysia through our venture in a brand called My Game On. Last year we made quite a significant revenue through esports, because it's cut
The
across
fact that you
multiple
said that
platforms,
and
right?
you smiled must be quite significant, lah.
Yeah, it was quite significant. Being our first big year on esports, it was like it was quite large, because we're from a media background. We have our asset to promote the campaign. We have a reach to get the audience in, and then at the same time, we what we did was we inserted entertainment value into esports. A lot of the esports company usually they will do the tournament, but they don't have sort of experience in doing entertainment, right? So we actually mix the esports with entertainment, and it was quite a big hit because we not just on the digital platform or in TV, we actually brought it up across Malaysia. So we went to 10 cities to do on ground event, activation with campuses, universities, state government and stuff. So it was last year we were like traveling like almost every other day into different states just to do this, right? But you can just imagine now
Yeah, yeah.
with that campaign at that perspective, right? And you cannot do traveling, you cannot do on ground event. You literally like whatever percentage of revenue from on ground before is just like down the drain, right? And
Hmm.
that's a big impact to us, right? So
You would hope that you
I
could just replicate, right, at scale from there on.
yeah, I know. I mean, that was the plan. You always need to scale. We were like, we were doing this number. We'll just do double of that number and then just continue to grow. And
Right.
2020 was supposed to be our big year and breaking record for our esports initiative. We had partners that were ready to come on board to work with us to create bigger things. But unfortunately, this happened. And the first thing we did was basically to sort of like, again, like I said, connect with our client and really understand like if we were what are and we know we can do on ground, right? But what are the things that they want to do on still want to do during this entire time? And I think
Hmm.
I'm gonna say this quite a bit during the show or during this webinar. Partners are really important. Partners that understand your business, their business as well. Friendship. We share quite a little bit of things about our business. What do we do and stuff, right? So one of the largest telco in Malaysia is one of our esports partner, and they really share with us like what are the thought process going forward for them, and on our end we sort of like trying to figure out like what can we do with that, and of course the team came up with a lot of idea, and one of it is really to bring the entire esports tournament into the virtual world, and also using our media to expand that in a bigger way, right?
Right, right.
So since then a lot of the ideas that we had, we really needed to, figure out this type of asset that we have and really look deep dive into, what other assets do we have, across the group that can actually help us to do this even bigger. Like for example, we've never really like figure out to like do it in a bigger way in the studios that we have, right? But we have
Right.
like multiple studios in a group, and then we sort of go, okay, let's just get one of the studio and then just sort of like work on it, lock it for a couple of months, and we'll just do esports across the board. And that's happening right now. In fact, we are launching the first one in 2 weeks time. So it's a virtual esports tournament, and we're launching cross-border now. I've never thought that we'll say that we're doing cross-border tournament now across, Singapore, Philippines, and Malaysia, of
So
course, and
what
Indonesia.
is it that you think the studios for? I thought it was interesting, and that didn't came out in our previous conversations in terms of this.
So
But
studios are basically where the host is going to be, narrate, the casters, where you call them esports. They will cast the game, and I think very important that the reason why we use a studio is that then we could get our client coming on the casting, studio, so they can actually do product demo. They talk about the
right,
product. Some of the clients want their CEOs to come and just talk about the product in between the show. you know any organizer that doesn't have a studio will actually wouldn't be able to do this. And
right,
if we didn't deep dive into like what are the assets that we have across the group, we probably didn't think of this. And because we were always having thought process like esports on ground, on virtual, that's
right,
pretty
right,
much it.
right.
But
That's
now we
the
sort of have it
formula
in
of
a
success
studio.
already, right? And then just
Yeah, it's formula of success. So we suddenly have to figure out, okay, what's the other success formula that we need to figure out to make this work for us. So that's one of the pretty interesting article example that we had over the course of COVID time, and I think we right now the team is. I just had a meeting with them earlier this week. They already have like 5 different virtual tournament that's lining up to go to the end of the year. uh, it's very important, right? When the team gets the idea, they will hustle through, and then when we get a client on board, we get the partners excited. The teams are also excited, right? So it's not
yeah,
really
yeah.
like you're on your own. You get excited about something, but you can't really sell it to your partner and client, right? And it's not no there's no use to that. But yeah, it's quite interesting this experience that we had.
No, 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 no. I think even though it's supposed to be in the next segment, so to speak, but I thought the example of leveraging studio
Right.
within the group itself, that was pretty interesting. And if I were
Yeah.
to go beyond the esports space, for instance, right? We're talking about people that has manufacturing facilities, people that has any kind of. If I take your studio as an example of real estate, lah, right? Um, do I still have you, Nick, online?
Sorry, I lost you a bit about it. What was the question? Sorry.
No, no, no. So if it was an example of your leveraging on your studio asset,
Right.
as an extension for other types of businesses, it means we're talking other businesses that has real estate, so to speak,
Right.
that may not be able to be utilized.
Right.
What else can be done? And that's what I think either some businesses are already thinking,
Right.
or perhaps some needs to think.
Right.
And this is naturally some of the conversations that we had with either retailers that can't optimize their space, right?
Right.
And that's a challenge. Yes, there's this compliance factor where you've got to have enough social distancing, how you put your tables and chairs across, right? But if you were to relook back at an asset, just as how you relooked at that, how the studio has been utilized, there could possibly be other ways in terms of trying to bridge that other revenue. And I thought that was pretty example out there. I got a team member that, since you brought up about esports, shared a little nugget data point here that says 35% to 40% of urban Malaysians are playing computer or digital games during MCO.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's yeah.
So as I mentioned just now in the earlier part of the show, we did a pre-COVID study, and we actually look at the behavior of what do people do at home.
Yeah.
And what we want to kind of look at facilitating businesses is that in terms of how they want to leverage their assets, if you know this is what they're doing at home, and if you know this behavior in terms of their anticipation, what they will do, once MCO gets released a lot more, or the lockdown gets released a lot more, then your preparation for those things can be a lot better.
Right. Yes.
And we're actually going to be addressing aspects of that in our next CiC Insights series in the third week of this month, to just show the possible correlation between people's behavior. So maybe we can talk further also, Nick. Go and talk to the esports partners and clients. Hey, look, this is the group. There's a delta in this group, and this is the potential aspects of things going on moving forward. So that's that I thought was very interesting and very applicable to other types of businesses out there. Is there anything else that you want to highlight in terms of the things that you guys tried out?
I think it's largely one of the example. The other example I probably can share is that this entire COVID MCO happened during the Ramadan and Raya period.
Right.
For any media company that depends on edX, this is one of our biggest biggest months, season of time. We could understand why a lot of the clients and agencies they're spending a lot of resources and on during this time or if it's normal, right? So one of the things that happened is that we obviously plan this Ramadan and Raya campaign way ahead, back in that usually back in December, because it's sort of a lot.
The conversation of COVID or the term MCO is even.
Right. And even if people were saying about COVID, right, people were like, this is nothing, right? We could it's not going to impact us one way or another. And of course, we pre-sell a lot of these things to our client, back in late 2019, and we've seen, pickup is, really great, but then, came during COVID and MCO time, a lot of things are impacted. But what happened was that, we, again, relating to partners and clients that we have, we really went back to them and say, like, what are your goals really during this time of period? For example, we had a Ramadan campaign where usually you lost me there.
Yes. You had a Ramadan campaign.
Okay. Yeah, I have a Ramadan campaign, and then we literally had to change that quickly into a place where people can actually see what to order during Ramadan time, and obviously we went to partners that would be interested to do that. The food delivery boys, obviously the big play during this time. I wouldn't say which one, but one of our close partner, they really came on board and really helped us to build a really nice site together where audience can just go on the site and select what are the food delivery during the Ramadan time. So that was one another example we had where we spent so much time and resources to build a campaign where it just went down the drain. But the next thing we sat down and looked at, okay, what else can we do this with asset that we have, rather than just shove it, not doing it at all, not spending time with it. We went to look for partners that could potentially be having the same goal, but in a different perspective of doing things. Yeah.
So I guess key point there essentially is yes, it may not seem to work on the get-go due to the changes, but really look at it and connect with things around you and see where those connections actually have commonalities so that you can still salvage. I think even in a lot of the conversations, right, it's not about trying to do that 100% that you had before. It's trying to salvage as much as possible that you can, and get into alignment with either your clients or your partners and so forth, in order to be able to still carry through what needs to be done. That's pretty awesome in that lens. I think I want to then bring back to other types of businesses and some of my observations also based on what you're saying, Nick, and what you're doing within Media Prima Digital itself. And if you look, for instance, tailoring business, that got impacted quite a bit as production for things are naturally impacted. People are not buying as much. But I've seen a lot of cases where a lot of the tailoring outfits are leveraging their talent skills, right? And even in the context of COVID, supporting the creation of PPEs out there. So it's not so much about trying to make back the margins again that the businesses were doing before, but at least to be able to retain the talents that you have, repurposing that talents into something that is of dire need during
Right.
that period. And I thought that was one extension through. Another one, within the startup ecosystem itself, I'll mention here StoreHub, for instance, was actually supporting quite a number of retailers out there in terms of their point of sale. And again, the partnership, if you see clients as just not clients, if you see clients as partners that is in this symbiotic relationship, then companies like StoreHub created a delivery mechanism, service mechanism to be able to then support the businesses to get things going, because they wouldn't have those kind of infrastructure or to provide enough options out there. And another example, I think, is how a company kind of look at working with its partners, clients, and supporting them in doing this also is Fave, who is also one of our partners, in leveraging their tools in getting companies, clients to pay upfront to support local businesses per se. So it's all the tools are there, right? But it's how you design those tools.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was interesting how the companies, again, are good examples about leveraging their assets. Fave leverage it, the tools that they can do in terms of its promotion things and kind of relate back. StoreHub did that. I've got all these points there. I just do a slight extension through. Same thing with the tailoring side. So it's not just about assets as in physical assets. Assets can also be from a talent lens. Assets can be also platform beyond media platforms. And other kind of tools that could essentially be leveraged. Again, this conversation is talked about, yes, examples here and there. Theories aren't always awesome, but you also alluded to just now, Nick, that there were challenges in executing some of the things, right? In hindsight, it can always sound easy.
Yeah.
In telling the story back, it can always sound very easy, but there will always be challenges. So I guess, for the benefit of the audiences out there, right? Yes, they are listening to all the different approaches that's been done. What are some of the things that they should be aware of in terms of possible challenges in executing some of this?
Right. I think, okay, maybe, I think the very first one is to have a team that's really agile to work with you. I've never seen my team in this manner before, where they're really, being agile to changes that was being made. And I think that is one of the biggest resources that you have, your team. If they're with you and throughout the time, they will basically work hard through the entire campaign or initiative that you do, because working from home remotely, it's not normal to a lot of people. You literally have to train some people to use tools like Zoom or Google Hangout and stuff, right? So I think that's really important. The teams are really important. If they're not agile enough with you, and then you will basically driving on your own. You're at home sitting down there on the computer and the screen, but no one's doing anything, right? That's really important. The teams are important. And I think the tools are very important. We're very fortunate that during the time, because we're digital anyway, we had a lot of tools, to track the team, just simple, simple project management tools that we use, tracking that we have. Because I think one of the things that I realized during this time is that you gotta have have a lot of micro KPIs within the teams, trying to in a small manner, but it's when they get together at the end of the entire campaign or the timelines we have, it comes very nicely. And the second one was that you yourself as a founder, as a CEO, or as a owner of the business, you got to work really hard to keep this business going. On normal days, I think you have a lot of your assistants, your colleague in the office to help you do a lot of things, but you yourself, you really have to sit down there and then put extra effort to drive the team forward, because I think people can't see you in doing things, but they will see the result that you are showing them when you're driving them by time. I think resources and people and the tools are really important. And I think the last one was that, like I said, the partners we have, they could really understand your business and your goals that you have. during this entire time, we have specific partners and client that really came to us and drive through together with us. Because our business will work if their business is doing well, right? So they
Right,
came
right.
to us, giving us tools. Certain one of the partners, the large partners we have, they even brought some new service that was not available in Southeast Asia, because they knew that we have this asset, we could do this together. They
Right, right.
quickly they brought the service to be deployed in Asia. So we're the first one is using it in Southeast
Cool.
Asia. So that happened because they understand what resources we have, what tools do we have. Because I think some businesses today, they are still very reluctant to share information about what they do, what asset they have, right? I mean for obvious reason of competition.
Right.
But once this partner understand, where our strengths are, what we're looking for, they could, can we have a call? We will have an hour of discussion on what to do. We straight away could deploy those changes quickly with our partners. So partners are really important in this whole time.
Cool, cool. No. I can't agree with you more on that. So even at our end in Datel, for instance, where our core asset essentially is data, right?
Right.
Well, we went through a similar process in terms of trying to kind of see what else can we extend from the core assets that we have, and I think also as an extension, working together with Media Prima Digital, we are looking at launching something that, within the context of COVID-19 and beyond, a tool that we call Citizen Personal Index.
Right.
That is going to help to look at more from a preventive lens with regards to the exposure of a person. And that pretty much came from, when we talk about assets, for us is digital assets of whatever that we built before that needs to be rebuilt into different sets of Lego blocks to be able to come up with a new service, essentially. Great. So you know what? We're almost about time, because our session today is really about 45 minutes. Thank you for the insights, but I thought before we part ways, Nick, perhaps you can just drop, 3, max 5 key takeaways that, after listening to all these things, and they just could be muffled around, but what is it, if anything, for any of the audiences out there that they should kind of remember and see how that can be applied within their business itself?
Yeah, I sort of jumped the gun a bit just now with sharing, the things that I just shared.
But if you can just compress that a bit. I know you kind of touched that a bit just now already.
So the 3 things that I put together was, agility of the team is really important. That's your biggest resources that you have. And then plus you yourself as a leader of the company, that drives the team, needs to have that mindset as well. That was the first one, agility with the teams. The second one will be, have micro KPIs. I think this is very not very new to some startup. They have a lot of micro KPIs to sort of the big goals. Even a corporate company like us, we have this micro KPI mindset to just make sure that everyone sort of work together in their area to achieve the bigger goals. And then the last one, again, I said relationship with partners and clients are important. Sometimes you take these things for granted, where both party is trying to make money from each other, but at the end, the partners that stick with us during the entire time, we really appreciate them being with us, because without them we could be having this high number of traffic, these resources that we have, these assets we have, but we never would be able to apply them without them being together with in the same boat.
Right. Great. Thank you very much, Nick. That kind of sums up our sharing session for this webinar series for CiC. As I mentioned earlier on, for those of you guys who is interested to kind of keep track with the different types of consumer behaviors and join more sharing sessions like what we had with Nick this morning, do join us at cic.datel.asia. Register to be part of the circle. There's no cost to it. Like I said, it's a community. But the community, as how we strive to move this forward, is trying to bring more people like Nick that has gone through some challenges, and to be able to contextualize that with the businesses out there, to be able to see how can we collectively can learn from each other. We may not be in the same space, right? But I think the strategies that somebody applies even in a different industry or vertical could be taken and applied within another vertical itself also. And if you guys have any questions and so forth, drop us a line. We'll be having these videos up online. Connect with us. We're more than happy to be able to actually follow through with some of the possible challenges that you guys are facing out there. Once again, Nick, thank you very much for
Thank
this
you. Thank you for having me.
and I do hope our audiences out there have enjoyed the session and found something that is applicable at their end. Thanks again.
Thank you.